If the police can't stop you, you must be on the dust.
With pride and a pallet of rare booze on the line, two friendly lance commanders on a forgotten planet took to the sim pods in a war to settle the score. The challenge was simple. Each commander would bring their boys, but they would all pilot the same machines. Only a true test of skill would be appropriate to take a pallet of the coveted Timbiki Dark. How'd they acquire it? Never you mind. The stakes went from medium rare to well done after the bet was further intensified. The commanders would bring some of their best pilots to keep their skill sharp and test their wits against each other as well. As it turns out, all you need is your buddies and a few brewskis to have a good time. Large crowds are for the charlatans on Solaris 7. The only magic trick that matters out here in the black is the good old disappearing act. Hobbs, however, wasn't exactly in a rush just yet. He'd let his engine idle westward for a tick. Rip, for his part, knew Hobbs was always up to something, and tigers are unpredictable in nature. The game was afoot. If poppin' tabs that night was on his agenda, Hobbs had to change the direction of the fight before it really had a chance to start shaping itself against him. Using a Y-axis attack approach allowed him to test the waters with his opponent, while also giving him the ability to break at a moment's notice to counter opposing movements. A simple left or right was all that was typically necessary when an opponent commits, and this juke was already beginning to send the Rangers moving hurriedly toward the skirmish line. Now having to readjust to this new southern vector, the Rangers began slowly moving into the gap to avoid being flanked. Historically, not a great set of choices to be faced with. Rip brought up the rearguard advance in his awesome, and the dance played out similarly between both sets of heavy mechs. Warhammer pilots would step up to the plate while their contemporaries warmed up in the bullpen. His own Warhammer humming underneath his feet, Hobbs knew the key was to keep their momentum and work closely, and try to split the enemy apart at the same time. As the Rangers each in turn looked for their new attack vectors, Hobbs and his crew were now fully westward bound by way of the south, their movements being a concentrated effort to confound the Rangers and frustrate them until they were out of pocket. Shots, simulated or not, were close to ringing in everyone's ears. With the curtains pulled back on Hobbs' little trick, the brick wall at the back of the theater was now clearly visible. Rip knew there was no getting out of this, only going through it. Predicting his rival's tactics took a lot less guesswork while Hobbs and crew moved west, and Rip sent his own forward to take control of the gap in spite of the Tigers' song and dance routine. They were Rangers, after all. Moving into sniper positions was their bag, and Broadway was their beat, baby. Hobbs, now thrust into the role of Punch and Judy Man, kept a cool head in the face of Rip's attack approach. As it turns out, hostile takeovers only work if you slow down or stop moving. With his Griffin pilot as bait, this finally got old Snord to come down off of his hilltop lookout station, and Hobbs was more than ready to lose him for a few ticks while they gave his boys the business. The shots began immediately as particle cannons flew toward the Tiger's Griffin from several angles on the battlefield. Bloodletting, however, would begin with the Tigers. While Hobbs and the rest of the crew laid down suppressing fire to keep the approaching Warhammer at bay, his Griffin pilot finally heard the sound he'd been waiting for. With the guidance system growling beautifully in his ear, he sent 10 missiles screaming toward the enemy Warhammer. All 10 missiles crashed into the Warhammer's legs, blowing several panels of armor plating clean off. The Tigers had flashed leather first. The Tigers were off to a strong start, and the Rangers struggled to find positions of cover within the gap. Rip himself was still a ways away from the battle, and he knew by the time he was able to join, Hobbs and his fellows would have regrouped in the southwest. He knew he needed to buy time. Hobbs may have caught him looking at first, but as their westward march continued, Rip and his fellows took their advantages where they could find them. Finding defilade amongst woods or behind hills that protected their leg armor, there was really nothing more for the Tigers to do except the same. The Rangers had called the bluff. Standing shoulder to shoulder with his lieutenant inside the Marauder, Hobbs had to think fast. There wasn't going to be any forcing his way up any further while Rip was running a zone defense. The gap was now alive with writhing metal, and his awesome was fast approaching. As fast as 80 tons can approach, anyway. In a blur of flying particle cannon fire, both sides began to unleash the full might of their powerful machines. Fingers pulled the trigger over and over again, each time sending simulated man-made lightning screaming its way across the battlefield in almost every conceivable direction faster than Zeus could throw them from Mount Olympus. The Ranger's Warhammer tipped back slightly as Hobbs gave him a proper knock with his machine's particle cannon, but the rest of his team hit nothing but sky, a near total blank. Dancing as gracefully as a pig, the Tiger's Awesome could also no longer fight the moonlight. Slamming into his cockpit, a particle cannon blast from the Ranger's Marauder left his vision awash in light, and his cockpit simulator nearly became a tanning bed. Location. Nice! To the dome, baby!
Wow, that's
Keep to the dome. We're good.
Now
Now I'm driving a convertible, so don't do any more of those.
He could have easily just
You're like,
rolled
oh,
that
the air
that
conditioning in
cockpit
this thing
hit
is
on that
good.
Yeah,
convertible.
like a one critical hit, like an 8 or 9, and then to the 3.
Yeah.
That would have sucked. Well, that sure puts a crimp in things.
Shake it up, 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 shake it up. I'm your boogeyman, that's what I am. I'm here to do.
Hobbs had no choice but to change vectors. Rip's Rangers had barely a scratch on them, so bulldozing their way into the gap was out of the question. Hobbs and his lieutenant in the Marauder backpedaled as their fellow in the Awesome blew past. Rip's men were all holding their positions, keeping defilade and refusing to give quarter. What the Tigers needed was a distraction. More particle cannon lightning filled the air as the Tigers' Griffin surged forward. And to their credit, each side gave about as good as they got. The Timbiki Dark wasn't flowing anytime soon. Hobbs' distraction worked. As his Griffin pilot continued to buzz his way into enemy airspace, the Ranger's eye went off the ball and the party started to slowly split. Hobbs and his lieutenant kept the pressure up with their Man in the Awesome on the 6, and with this move they'd managed to keep the enemy Warhammer cut off from the action. It all worked out in the Tigers' favor, and they smashed a hard-line double, taking the Rangers 2-1 for damage. Hobbs' Man in the Awesome sent 3 particle cannons toward the Rangers' Griffin, tearing at several new holes it didn't have before, and even Hobbs himself nailed Rip's Awesome with a particle cannon through the trees. Hobbs just couldn't get in front of the 8-ball to save his life, and even the fearsome spread from his Man in the Awesome wasn't enough for him to give the Rangers the back off. His Griffin pilot continued the harassment tactics, but it seemed like the tires had gone flat on that line of attack. The Rangers no longer appeared interested. Planning to pillbox their Marauder and turn it into a pocket awesome, the Rangers continued their march toward the Tigers' position while they backpedaled. Hobbs was back in a tight spot again. His feint had worked earlier, but only just. As the gears in his Warhammer turned, howling, the Rangers' roadblock would stand strong. Duplicate mechs or not, no matter how fancy your crap is, you can still die if you try hard enough. While Hobbs and his main lieutenant tried to play damage control, they failed to note the position of the Rangers' Griffin as they each moved into their own respective defensive stances. As the enemy Awesome came into his field of view, the pilot did the unthinkable, setting his jump jets to push his mech on a collision course with the 80-ton behemoth. Startled, the man inside the Awesome quickly turned his torso to the left and let fly with everything he had, wildly pulling the trigger. Joined by Hobbs and his lieutenant in the Marauder, 4 particle cannons left the Griffin almost utterly destroyed, and as it lost all control, what was left of it careened into the cockpit of the Awesome, removing them both from the battlefield in the blink of an eye. And in that terrible instant, they knew each other. 7 or better makes the DFA.
Big gamble.
Oh, he made it, son of a bitch.
All right, let's see. I believe it goes to the punch locations table.
Yes, you're correct.
So, I mean, you know, we'll see what happens. This could fail horribly, but if it pays off, it'll be glorious. Let's see here.
All right, any 6 kills it. Oh, he did it! Very good, sir. Son of a bitch.
Oh, man.
Crunch!
Distracted by this insane turn of events, the rest of Rip's team came up completely dry against the Tigers, watching the carcass of their side's Griffin smash into the nearly fresh assault mech with all the grace and artistry of a cinder block through a window pane. The game had very clearly changed.
Tuck's a scary opponent. I never know what direction those mechs are going to go, and all I've been trying to do is not fall for the traps and the bait that he's setting. So when he's trying to send something that he wants me to focus on,
Like that Griffin.
I'm approaching with, I'm going to try to ignore it and not do what he wants me to do. I guess to me that is an anti-strategy, because I'm not the most strategic player necessarily, but it's working out so far. My Warhammer's pretty damn beat up. I don't know how this is going to play out, but I definitely like my odds going forward with what we just played out. So I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be tough, though. I think that I still have to overcome a pretty beefy Marauder that is absolutely pristine and a Griffin that hasn't been touched yet. But Yeah, I don't know. I'm still riding a little bit of a high from the insanity of the luck of the dice.
Yeah, pulling off that DFA was insane. I had no, because I'm sitting there, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, me personally, I would have gone and snuck behind him, but that back armor might be a little lighter, but had no damage on it.
Yep.
So you pulling off that DFA was probably the smartest thing you could have done at that point in time.
And it's really just, if I had not had that headshot on the awesome first, I could not have pulled that off. And that was what kind of led me to try it, because I was like, wait, headshot, I only really have to get one of those clusters to hit, and he's down. And we're such good pilots in this match as far as what our piloting skills are. I liked the odds, and the odds fell in my favor. So, but we'll see, because you know, this is a game where dice rolls are important, and anything could happen. So I don't know, we'll see. I think no matter how it goes, Tuck's gonna keep me on my toes. So all right, that's all I got.
So, I just lost my awesome thanks to a death from above from a griffin. Got the griffin, you know, in the crossfire, so he's going to be done for. But I'm telling you now, I'm fucked. This game is over. But I'm going to take my own advice. I'm not going to let this, you know, get me down. I'm not going to let it affect me. I'm still going to play this to the bone as best I can. But losing essentially a fresh awesome, what are you gonna do, you know? And he still has his, and I've only tagged it with a few points of damage here or there. So the only way that I win this fight is if I get insanely lucky. I'm talking, I have got to reach so far up my ass that my hand is coming out of my mouth, and I have to find some kind of external luck and pull it all the way back through just to be able to catch up at this point. So, I mean, that was an epic way to go, though. You can't say that wasn't cool as hell. And I knew that there was that possibility, but I honestly didn't think he would attempt it, because there's so few players that will attempt a death from above. And he needed 7 to get it. And I thought he needed 8, but then we recalculated it and realized, ah, shit. And he rolled a 9 anyway, so no matter what my original idea was, he would have hit it regardless. And now God, I am behind the 8 ball so hard. If I win this game, you all have my permission to just say you are the luckiest bastard on the face of the fucking earth. Just planet motherfucking earth. I'm done. Hobbs was beginning to think the jig might be up. With his Griffin pilot now cut off from he and his lieutenant, he bristled at the thought of a lone Griffin single-handedly facing down a wall of steel that thick. Worse, there wasn't anything he could really do about it either. Except, that is, to tell the Griffin pilot to get the hell out of his present situation. Predictably, the Rangers sent a man to chase down the beleaguered Griffin pilot, with shots flying thick and fast as he tried to make good his escape. All Hobbs and his lieutenant could do was back up and wait for the arrival of their fellow, but the Rangers already had his number. While the man inside their Marauder chased his prey, Rip and his buddy would make sure Hobbs wouldn't be there to receive, and the captive children of curiosity prepared for the oncoming deluge of defiance. The trio of tigers were finally beginning to put together some semblance of a plan to regroup, but this was going to take time, and the Rangers were making it very clear that time was a commodity Hobbs didn't exactly have a whole lot of. Beset from multiple attack angles, the man in the Tiger's Griffin was struggling to keep up, even with his machine's great speed. Positioning themselves in the backfield, Hobbs and his lieutenant saw this as an opportunity. With the Rangers so tightly focused on the escaping Griffin, perhaps the Tigers could score a few hits in spite of the distance. Rip joined in on the chase to take down the Griffin, and Hobbs knew his time was running short if they were going to have any kind of effect on the situation whatsoever. If he and his lieutenant wanted a decent shot at that Warhammer, they'd have to get him out in the open. And though he hated to say it, he had to tell his man in the Griffin that it was time to be the bait. If the Tigers could just get the Rangers to fully devote their attention that way, Hobbs would have a whole lot easier of a time shooting the enemy, especially when the enemy wasn't looking at him. His instincts were paying off, as Rip's Rangers again and again paid more attention to the fleeing Griffin than the two heavy mechs pelting armor away from their Warhammer from the southeast. The combined barrage from the Tigers was too much to handle, and as Hobbs watched the 70-ton monster crash to the dirt, a comeback was beginning to feel a whole lot more like a real distinct possibility and not just a pipe dream. They'd have to step on the gas. The Rangers could no longer afford to give Hobbs and crew the brush. Smoke belched from holes carved in the Rangers' Warhammer by the Tigers, and Hobbs began to suspect his man in the Griffin might just be out of the fire, but that meant he was going to be back in the frying pan again. The heat was on, and the Rangers were going to have to turn the wheel all the way to the side to change vectors now. The Tigers were close to having them surrounded. The Rangers' battered Warhammer was now being sent where his guns could conceivably do more good, but at this point, parts of the machine were falling apart, and Hobbs knew what blood on the ground looked like. With Hobbs closing in on his prey, Rip and his man in the Marauder were still too far off course to turn on a dime, and the cracked gyroscope hadn't made the Tiger's Griffin any less of a nuisance, much to his great chagrin. The Rangers' original zone defense had flipped, now favoring the Tigers, and with their Marauder pilot mad-dogging him from downrange, Rip pulled the trigger. Of the two particle cannons he sent toward his target, one struck the Marauder dead center mass, but the machine was fresh. No one had gotten a shot off on it the entire battle. Rip's focus was stolen away at the precise moment his Warhammer was. Hobbs had gored the machine with a pair of particle cannons to the chest, sending it off the battlefield for good. He'd taken a couple shots for his trouble, but the way he saw it, it was still a good trade for the Tigers.
Ejecting.
At this precise moment, Rip was blindsided by the Tiger's Marauder. With twin particle cannons firing, its pilot cast them across the battlefield with deadly precision, rocking the awesome and tossing Rip around inside the simulator. He kept his footing under the barrage, but only just, and the Griffin was still there. And thus began the showcase, Showdown. The Tigers' Marauder may have still been fresh as a daisy, but the Rangers had that card up their sleeve as well. In the mad dash to take out one target or another, each side had failed to place any shots on the other's backup unit, aside from Rip just a moment ago. The two of them were going to have to double time it to even the odds, just as soon as he blasted that bothersome Griffin. Hobbs and his lieutenant in the Marauder flashed their claws and set in on their prey as the party's attention was again divided. The pair gave the enemy Marauder a couple warning shots, a gentle nudge to maybe get Rip's attention, to no avail. Scored by missile fire from the Tiger's Griffin, his attention was still divided. Hobbs shrugged. Okay then.
Come a little bit closer, you're my kind of man. So big and so strong. Come a little bit closer. I'm all alone, and the night is so long.
By the time Rip had finally had enough of the rival Griffin pilots ducking and dodging, his man in the Marauder had been busy getting absolutely pummeled by the Tigers as they piled on with particle cannon after particle cannon. Laser fire shredded the 75-ton machine's digital frame, and despite its pilot spiking his heat to uncomfortable levels. The Tiger showed no signs of slowing down.
Come a little bit closer, you're my kind of man. So big and so strong. Come a little bit closer. I'm all alone, and the night is so long.
The gloves had come off at this point. Hobbs and his lieutenant were shooting fish in a barrel and just beating the enemy marauder like it owed them money. Particle cannon after particle cannon leveled the Mech's frame, shearing the torso off and leaving over half its weapon complement useless. Splitting his attention between the Griffin and Hobbs wasn't working either, and Rip had a sinking feeling in his stomach, like the palate of booze was slowly slipping away. Turning his attention toward Hobbs full time, the Ranger's Marauder was glowing bright red on Rip's scanners, and that was just from the particle cannon fire Hobbs and his lieutenant were mercilessly subjecting it to.
Come a little bit closer, you're my kind of man. So big and so strong. Come a little bit closer. I'm all alone, and the night is so long.
The machine's cracked engine shielding was bleeding out all over the place, and nothing Rip had to offer seemed to have any effect. Hobbs took a few final pot shots at the machine, which stood unmoving under their onslaught, and gave his lieutenant the signal. Throwing a final particle cannon through the cockpit, the Tiger slashed one more out from under the Rangers, and the writing was very clearly on the wall. Rip knew he couldn't hope to stand against the combined strength of the trio.
Alright, Battletech fans, it's after the action time. You know how it is. You know how we do. The very first game of Season 4, Cole from Rocket Custom Painting and Miniatures is joining us. He's sat here, he's watched the entire game. I got you in to bring some of that perspective. You're one of the fellow folks that lives here in Utah, and there's just no way, Daddy, that I could have you not come out here and take a look at this. So thank you, number one, for coming, and number two, for being patient and watching this whole thing. Of course. And that's the thing that I want to throw to you first. I promise I will come back to you, Topher.
I'm patient.
I always say that Battletech, as much as I love it, as much as I can never get enough of it, for an observer, I could understand how somebody might say this is a very boring game because it's so slow moving, it's very methodical.
It was a little slow to start, of course, with the size of the table. It's gonna happen, but with the mechs that were brought, with those long ranges, it was insane. And as you guys saw, that insane DFA that he brought to that table, I'm sitting here thinking, what are you doing? And he pulled it off and knocked out that awesome.
The awesome. He was channeling Charles Ash. That's what he was doing. So, Topher.
Yeah, there.
What happened? Hold on. I have to make a reference to the commentary that I did in the middle of this fight. Luckiest motherfucker on planet motherfucking Earth. The harbinger of boom strikes again, baby. Okay, I'm sorry, I had to get my shit
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'm coming into it like all I really wanted to be able to do was give you a match worth fighting, make you sweat a little bit.
You sure did that.
And I was gonna count that as a win, and I'll say that like I feel like I can count that as a win. I was able to kind of bring some moments that were maybe a little wild cardy, you know, just kind of get a little crazy, do a little bit of the unexpected, and honestly, I had a blast. I can't even believe it was so much fun. I cannot wait to see the finished the finished thing where I can watch it.
Oh man,
I'm
Unbelievable.
definitely going to be saving that.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. So, yep.
talk about the unexpected. That death from above attack, I knew when I moved there that I was like, he could do that, but is he really gonna? Turns out he didn't. And I knew all you got to do is look up and I miscalculated. There was a problem there was a misfire on my part. I thought you needed an 8 because I'm so used to pilots of skill 4.
Yep.
And then you were like, no, we have a 3 pilot. And I'm like, oh no, I have made the wrong move. And I mean, I just blessed this thing in righteous fire and I could not throw off its trajectory. Blam! Foot to the face.
But then it is so amazing to me that you had this just battered Griffin with like missing a leg actuator, just limping along, gyro hit, and just still managed to just harass in the rear in a way where I couldn't really engage it really well. And and then you know how it is. Dice gods, sometimes they smile, sometimes they frown.
With that Griffin, I was risking it for the biscuit.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie to you. With that gyro hit and then the foot actuator, like I had piloting skill rolls out the yin yang that I had to make every time I was running or every time I was jumping. And every time I'm talking, I would hit like 6, 7, like just barely what I need to make it. And eventually I was able to stanchion it right here in this little hole and just be like, screw it, I ain't going nowhere. I'll just shoot missiles. And my strategy there, I was making a pantomime to Cole while he was talking about it, is I was like, where's it going to hit the missiles? And I figure if I just lobbed LRMs like a friggin' grenade from all the way out behind this embankment, that all I got to do is just hit the head one time. And I'll get several rolls to attempt to do it. So the more times you get to roll, the more opportunity you have. And so I was doing that, and I wasn't even expecting it to come down to the Awesome. I was expecting it to come down to the Marauder,
Fresh Marauder,
and everybody else. But like, and the 3D Marauder, one of my absolute favorite machines. I can't even tell you how many times I've used it. And I was like, this guy is a bugger. To get him gone is a bugger. And finally I just sheared off all those weapons, and you were down to the medium laser and the PPC, and I said, oh, now it's manageable at least. And you went after the
And I can't believe
3 particle cannons, and it just said,
whiff, whiff, whiff. Yep.
no. Yeah, you missed the 2 at the very end, and you got the 1, and I just went, oh my god, how does this happen?
Yeah, seriously.
Jeff knows how this. Let's just be honest with ourselves. Who's fucking with my medicine?
Unbelievable.
Let's talk for a second about the conclusion of the bet between these 2 characters, because this, I'm going to put you over here, so I hope you don't mind. That was a fantastic story idea. That was legit creative as fuck. And so I'm just like, yeah, that's great. I want to play this fight. So this was just a super interesting scenario to play through, and I'm going to tell you what I thought about it, and you chime in too. I want to hear what you think. I think, and I don't know, we didn't roll for this, we just picked a side. I picked that side to start off with, that deployment zone. I feel like that was a mistake. I'll tell you why. You had, picking this side of the table, had ample opportunities to park them and bark them the whole way in. You were just stanchioning your guys behind Defilade, and that is the absolute right move to make. Like, I told him, I am so behind the 8 ball. You were in the bathroom, and I was like, I am so screwed. I have got to just get so lucky. But everybody that watches the mid-match interview will know, I will take my own advice. I will play it to the bone. I ain't gonna give up. I ain't gonna give in. We're still gonna do all this. Eye of the tiger style. I'm gonna fight until the last. And you were asking, like, how does this happen? Or you were asking, how does it happen? I'm like, I think it was my attitude going, I don't care. I will not take this as a demoralizing loss. I'll just keep going.
Yeah, all you can do.
With the way that, with the level 1 hills providing, was it half cover?
Half cover.
Half cover.
Partial cover.
It's interesting to see how you can maneuver and try to just line up those perfect shots. And just the fact that you tried to hide your Awesome on that other side is what gave him the perfect opportunity, again, to pull off what he did.
Yeah.
And so I might be inclined to agree with you. Picking this side might have been your downfall.
Well, if it weren't for insane, look, my plan was to get the Awesome up onto that hill where the Griffin was, and then I was going to stick him, see where that tower is, I was going to stick him right behind there and be like, that's where my cone of fire, and I'll either back up to the other side or that side, depending on who I need to shoot and what side of the hill they're on. But like I say, you coming in, and I was like, oh God, I can't believe I just let this happen. How bad am I? And I said, you know, I've used these things to death. This Marauder, that Warhammer, that Griffin, they are some of my favorite machines. I'm just gonna go and run as fast as I possibly can. Now let me ask you this. What do you think you could have done differently? Do you think that you lost because of something you did, or just insane dice rolls and it's me, so get the hell out of here, Tuck?
I felt like there were just key moments where if I could have scored the finishing blow that I was aiming for, this, like when you had your Griffin coming up this line and I had your Griffin isolated.
Yeah, he was such
just
a sitting
pouring
duck.
fire at your Griffin and then couldn't finish him off. And it was like when you started backing off and you were getting up closer with these other guys and I had to turn to engage, if I could have just finished that Griffin off, that could have gone really, really differently.
I think that's part of it. I was using the Griffin to lay off heat on those guys.
Yeah. No,
I
for
wanted you
sure.
to be like, hey, what's that over there? And shoot at it. I didn't care if you killed it.
Yeah.
I was like, that gives my other two heavies here some opportunity to throw some unanswered damage. That didn't end up happening. You even said at one point, yeah, I'm not going after that thing. That's what he wants me to do. And I was like,
Oh yeah, that was at the beginning when you brought it to the back.
That was bait.
Yeah.
It was bait. I was just like, go look at that. Don't look at these.
But it was
this
when he
direction.
had all the damage, and I was like, okay, at this point he's worth shooting at because I can take him out of the equation.
Sure.
But then, okay, look, you know, I couldn't finish him off. You pulled him back, and I said, okay, I'm going to focus on these guys. You're beat to hell Warhammer. That I was like, how I cannot. I felt like I should have been able to kill that thing turns ago, and I just could not score that killing blow. And again, if I could have finished off that Warhammer, this ends up a kind of different match.
Yeah.
But it's like you rode wave after wave of damage that came in on that.
Cannot believe.
And I was floored. Like, what the hell is even happening right now? And
Ask Bishop Steiner, he'll say, because it was that stupid 6D Warhammer, that's why.
But I mean, you played beautifully. You played beautifully out of a tough spot. Credit to you for that.
What I will say is, I feel like when I was over in this zone right here, see that patch of trees right there?
Yeah.
And my Warhammer and my Marauder were over there fucking around. I looked at it and I said to myself, that is a kill box, is what that is. And I am stuck in it. I need to GTFOH. And I don't usually like to give myself too much credit because I don't want to get a big head. But I looked at it like, if I could just get the fuck out of kill zone, maybe I'll be okay. And I took the Warhammer, I went around the side of the building here, because I'm like, that'll give you less to shoot at, because your Warhammer was still a hella threat. And I was like, I'm gonna have to I can't do it. I can't do the same thing with the Marauder. I'm gonna have to take this stupid thing and I'm gonna have to march it right up Main Street and dare you to do something about it. And that was the only thing I had. And so I just threw him right up there. I'm like, come on, go, hi guys. And it just ended up working out with that patch of heavy woods. See, the light woods, you don't get as much defense there. The heavy woods, you can park your butt right there and just be like, I get a 2 defense, it's cool, or a 4, and as the case may be. You just were about to say something. What do you got?
I was gonna say, about the time you realized that was a kill box was about the time it clicked for me, and I'm like, oh, if Tuck doesn't move, he's not going to make it.
Yeah, I can't keep backpedaling, I can't keep screwing around, because this terrain was such that there's no real way to navigate it, whereas you had a lot of straightaways here, and you had a lot better navigation. So there was a mistake on my part, so there's that, and the moving the awesome over there were to thinking that my opponent won't do it. That was the real mistake. Thinking, yeah, he ain't gonna try it.
Why would he? Why would he?
Yeah, who does that?
Who does that?
But with 3 pilots on a 1, 2, 3 jump, and then you got a 1 defense on the awesome there, it's not a hard thing to make. 7, you're gonna roll more than any other combination on 6-sided dice. So I mean, it was worth trying. But I says, I gotta get out. We gotta get out of this place. And I couldn't. There was no way to go but through. That was it. It just had to be. And I only had the one option to kind of juke and jive around that mountain there. But the Marauder, I was like, he's gonna get trained. I'm gonna be screwed. And you just kept rolling 3s, 4s, and I'm like, oh, how is this happening? Oh my god!
That was a rough stretch, but you know what? Hey, it happened.
I will give you credit. Your attitude was superhuman. It was great. Like, just no matter what bad thing happened to this man, he was just like, oh, rats, well, I'll get you next time. And there was no stopping him. You know, he was just like, I don't care. I will keep going all the way up until I can't go anymore. And I don't know. You'll know. At least there was a couple of times where I would roll and I'd go, fucking hit for shit. I'm not gonna lie. I was in the door.
I think the funniest thing was the roll where he had matching numbers on matching.
Oh my God! 6655 Yahtzee.
Yeah. And then on the hit location, it was 5544.
Oh,
what the hell?
God. We're going to Vegas. We're not that far away.
That's the thing. Like, I've never been the most strategic player. I'm that guy who's not always going to do the smart thing, but I'm going to do the fun thing.
Yeah, or
And
just
that's-
blunt force trauma. And it was so interesting that, like, the Griffin pilot gave his mech to say, I got this, fellas, I'll take care of it, don't you worry. And he just blam, okay, my machine blew up, but I got the big guy.
Yep, that was fun.
And that's something you can really only do in a simulator environment. As I was telling these guys, I was like, yeah, you know, normally at about the time where you lose half your mechs, that's when most people tend to give up. But in a simulator, there's no reason for that. You're not risking life and limb here. You're not risking your actual hardware. This is all just do what you like, will be the whole of the law. And so there was a reason to keep it going that long, but I did offer you, okay, you have the chance. You can surrender now that it's down to like 3-on-1. But even the 3 that I had left, the Marauder was still pretty good.
Yep.
The War...
Yeah, I wasn't
spit
going to
and
beat
wishes.
the Marauder. Yeah.
Chewed to hell, held together by duct tape.
And the Griffin over here is just going, I'm here. I'm also here. Hello. PPC. See?
Yeah, I mean, and that's like with the Griffin and the Warhammer, it's like I was just one good PPC hit in the right spot away from killing both of those. And it's so rough because, like, you know, like I said, sometimes it goes. And there was a certain point where I was sort of like, okay, I'm probably going to lose this with Tuck's Marauder still standing. But then couldn't finish off these freaking 2 Steiner painted mechs. Bishop, Steiner mechs could be killed. What's going on here?
The defectors.
Again, like you said, the way my mindset generally is in games is just, oh well, and then keep going. So I don't really fall victim to the demoralization aspect maybe that some players might sometimes.
Your morale was high the entire time.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh well, let's try this, let's see what works, And because again, like in this game, you never know. A good die roll here, a good die roll there is an absolute
one shot can turn the tide.
Changer. So,
and the sheer number of headshots.
Yeah, there were so many headshots in this.
God, you got my awesome, and then I got your awesome, and then I got your Warhammer, and I think I hit the Marauder.
By the end of it, I had a headshot on every mech that was on the board, minus the Griffin that had already died. But,
right. Yeah, all of your guys did.
Yeah, all of my guys had headshots on them, every single one of them.
And did my Warhammer? I can't remember now. I don't think it did.
I don't think his did.
Yes, his did.
Because he had
I
a sensor
think
hit.
yours did. I don't think your Marauder did. I want to say your Marauder was probably, at this point, your Marauder is the only one on the board that didn't have a headshot.
Right. So okay,
I want to say.
Let me ask you this: if you were playing this, and it could be, you can pick either side, my side or that side. How would you have approached? You know what? I changed my question. Let's say you're in his shoes and you're playing me. How would you have approached this?
Honestly, I probably would have done a lot of the same things. I would have kept the heavy hitters back, just harassing you at range. I probably would have paid a little bit more. I probably, honestly, would have fell for the Griffin trap. I would have taken the bait and opened up my back, realizing I made a mistake, and then turned right around and dealt with everything else. I probably wouldn't have done the DFA. But then again, thinking about it, thinking how cool that was, I would have done that.
This would have been such a dramatically different game if that awesome hadn't been taken out. What the hell turn was it? 6?
I think so,
7?
something like
So
that.
it suffered a headshot
on turn 4.
on turn 4, and then he
I think
DFA'd it by
2 turns later.
6 or 7.
And this was nice. You're so wonderful to play this game with, especially as someone coming back into it, because you're patient with the things I don't remember. You remind me of the things that, oh yeah, this is how this works. This is where you put that marker. It's such a great experience. I couldn't have asked for a better way to get back into the hobby on an actual good tabletop match. So yeah.
I always tell folks, look, I will crunch the numbers for you until I'm dead. I don't care.
So useful for me who can't remember tables for shit. So like,
and because just the sheer frequency, I have all this stuff memorized anyway, most of it memorized. And I'll get a missile hit wrong here or there. But like, I'll usually say, well, here, if you're not sure, I will add the numbers up right in front of your face. So you know I'm not trying to fleece you. And that never bothers me, and it never will. And if somebody can't remember, I'll always just be like, no, it's fine. I would rather any day with BattleTech in it is better than a day without.
100%.
So I do not. I do not.
If we had the beers in front of us, I would raise it.
That's for later, Daddy. But I think I'm gonna sign off here. We've had a great game. It's been wonderful. So thank you both for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And as a thank you for having me here, I have something a little special for you.
Me? You
Yes,
do?
You have been one of my best friends for a while. We've been friends for, I don't know, 5-6 years, and to me that means
Has
a
it
lot.
really been that long?
I think so.
Why am I that old?
Yep, I know.
It's 2022, right?
22, I think.
21, 20, 19, 18, 17?
I think somewhere around there when I first started painting.
Okay, that would be fair.
So, as a thank you for not only being my friend, but having me here, I have something special, and it is something that I put my heart and my soul, that is all my work into. It is a Comstar Thug.
Yeah.
Bishop Steiner, are you jealous of
Firing
this thing?
2 PCs at the
And look, it's got the little reflections of
that's
the particle
gorgeous.
cannon bolts on the ground. It's got the object source lighting there on the side. This is
It's even
dope.
battle damage,
Yeah,
too.
I can see the holes in it, like the gun holes in it. I've seen the quality of miniatures that you paint, man. And there was, like I told you, there's no way I could have you in the state and not, I had to come and get you, and it was not a problem. I'm not about to let an hour of driving stop me from making a memory. That's what we do here. And we've got some super cool stuff. I'm going to put that on the screen. If you want to take a look at this guy's work, I've got it all right there for you. These are battle damaged Star League mechs, right? Like Kerensky era?
Kerensky era, I'd started with the Orion and figured, you know what, if I'm gonna do an Orion, it's gotta be SLDF.
Man, check that battle damage on these guys. Have you seen this?
That Atlas is ridiculous.
That is so good.
And you gotta, if you have Kerensky, you have to have his right-hand man.
Oh yeah, Aaron D. Chevalier, baby. So you're telling me this Orion right here is Kerensky's Orion?
That's kind of what I was going for.
Look at you, even got the red tips on these missiles in there. Look at the insane detail.
I pay a lot of attention to detail. It's something that I put my heart and my soul into.
I would have just painted it silver and been like, we're good. That's it.
But yeah,
And you've even got the inside of the weapon barrels here. That is so cool.
Thank you.
Man, it's neat to see Kerensky's little force here with his buddy.
It's the Orion at the end of the Unity City fight.
Oh yeah,
kicking the door
kicking
down,
the gates in,
demanding demanding Amaris surrender. So I'm really happy. I have a few more to add to this. I actually picked up today, so I'm looking forward to finishing up the company.
All right, BattleTech fans, that concludes the first episode of the unprecedented 4th season of Battlebound. We've had an absolute blast out here in Midvale, Utah. We're correcting it from before the fight at HASTUR Games. If you want to check them out, I'm going to put that information up on the screen for you. It's a freaking awesome store. I would cut my pinky fingers off right now to have a store like this back home. But we're not going to do that. That would get us an R rating, and I'm not looking forward to it. Folks, we've had an absolute blast, like I said, and if you like what you've seen so far, do us a solid, hit that subscribe bell down there, turn on all notifications so you can find out exactly where Battlebound's gonna turn up next, because you never know when we're rolling through your town, baby. Cole Walker of Rocket Custom Painting and Miniatures and our featured player Topher are gonna join you next time out on the space lanes where Battlebound!
Welcome to the jungle, it gets worse here every day. You learn to live like an animal in the jungle where we play. If you gotta hung up for what you see, you'll take it eventually. You can have anything you want, but you better not take it from me. In the jungle, welcome to the jungle, won't you bring it to your knees, knees. I'm gonna watch you bleed.
ST. The Dust.
Be sure to smash our like button and subscribe to our channel.
Crowdfunding is when lots of people give you small amounts of money to help your passion project come to life.